Well, Jarvis, it's just 3 days, T minus 3 days to coming back home to the Benz, that is, for the Atlanta Falcons. They, of course, have the daunting task of taking on one of the surprise teams in the league doing so well. That is the San Francisco 49ers, right? Now,
Right.
one of the things that we're looking at in what we hope to see in not just the Falcons being competitive, but let's just be honest with this thing, in giving them a true opportunity to win a game, and that is seeing some more productivity on offense. And you know where that starts under center. Now, Marcus
Right.
Mariota talked about what has kind of been that difference for him this time around, because of course we know he was in Tennessee with Arthur Smith when Arthur Smith was the OC. He said he felt like they're kind of never communicated things that he liked, things he's seeing. He always felt kind of like he was just trying to please the coaches. Well, not this time. Arthur Smith is being receptive to what Mariota has to say. And do you think maybe because Arthur Smith is receptive to what Mariota is saying, Mariota is receiving the message from Arthur Smith, that we will finally see some things clicking on all cylinders that might actually help the pass game, but that has also helped so far this run game?
You know what? I think that yes. To answer your question, yes, I believe so because there is a maturity factor that was in that statement that I believe Marcus
Yeah.
Mariota has to understand, and I think he fully understands it. That's why he's able to give some feedback as to like, okay, here's what I feel more comfortable about doing,
Yeah.
and from Arthur Smith's standpoint, here's what I feel more comfortable about you doing. And
Right.
hopefully those things match up during the week as they go through the game plan. So I think that's something because let's face it, like I will continue to say this. Like Arthur Smith is a really good play caller.
He really
He's exemplified that since his first year
is.
as head coach for this team, and he's doing that again in his second year because he understands what he's working with. Because we know we've talked about it, we've gone back and looked at the film and say, hey, Marcus Mariota isn't the guy that's going to be, hey, I'm hitting my first read here is not there. I'm going to hit my second read. My second read not there. I'm going to my third read.
Yeah.
Third read not there. I'm going to hit the check down. And
Check
we're
down,
going
man.
we're going to process that within probably about two
Three
and a
to
half seconds.
yeah.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So I think that for Marcus Mariota to understand what he feels comfortable doing, and then for Arthur Smith to be able to say, hey, I'm not going to put you in position to do something to make you uncomfortable, especially when you're coming up against the defense by that like the San Francisco 49ers and they're being coached by a guy who should be a head coach next year, hands down, and D'Amico Ryans.
No question.
That's a recipe for success in my eyes because and I think they got a nice little taste of it last week against Tampa Bay Buccaneers because, hey, we know those guys are willing to walk up guys and send pressures from everywhere, and Ryans is going to do the same thing. So I think that they got a nice little precursor to what they were going to see this week, and I think you're going to see a lot more quick screens and Mario to getting the ball out of his hands as quick as
Yeah.
possible. And of course, you know, for if the world is coming to an end, if they're not going to work that play action team.
Right. Exactly. That would shock you, me, and like you said, the rest of the world. But you
Indeed.
made a couple of great points in there as well that I want to go back to. And one of those things is the fact that, yes, this will be like 2.0 for the Falcons. They saw it last week. But more importantly, Jarvis, they mastered it the second half. So
Right.
that's
Yep.
really a good thing. That to me makes me confident that the Falcons are going to be able to hit the ground running early, because I do believe they need to get off to an early start. And I'm not talking about a field goal here. I'm talking about getting 7 on the board early and really being able to dictate the flow of the game. And I do think that, like you said, part of the reason that that run game has been so successful is because, if nothing else, Mariota, for the most part, does know how to kind of, as a mature quarterback, does know how to at least rally the troops and make sure that people are where they're supposed to be and that
Right.
plays get off the ground. Because, yeah, I do understand that we talk about the fumbles and they are absolutely annoying and unacceptable at this stage of his career, but he doesn't just snap the ball one time. So if he snaps the ball 50 times, 60 times a game, and there's one fumble, then that means something is going well enough to be able to execute 6 straight runs that ultimately lead you to a score. And
Right.
the week before that, 14 straight runs, 10 of which led you to a score. So I think you make a great point about his maturity and his evolution of his relationship with Arthur Smith directly impacting the other side of the game. Now we just have to kind of see it impact the passing game. And I think you're onto something. It's quick screens. It's being able to just do your reads, even if it's just a little bit faster. That should help it out tremendously. But another thing Another thing that I think is going to help out potentially is if he gets Kyle Pitts back. And yes, I know that people have been saying Kyle Pitts isn't targeted enough. We agree on this show. ATL Day Ones agrees with you. However, there was a moment, I would say, Jarvis, not maybe last week or maybe the week before, where we saw him start to get more. I believe he got 7 or 8 targets and picked up, 5 or 6 receptions, right?
Right.
If we go back to that, and if Kyle Wright's hammy is kind of back in working order, for lack of a better term, which he was at practice yesterday, looked pretty decent, then how much more would that improve Dave Ragone and Arthur Smith's ability to craft the type of game plan that will suit Marcus Mariota and give the running attack a complementary passing attack, all because KP might be back.
Oh, it'll be huge because when we talked about how when we figured out that Kyle Pitts wasn't going to go last week, we understood. I kind of laid out what it was when you talk about recognizing form personnel and trying to figure out where they are and what are they more likely to do, right? If they coming out, if they have a one tight end and 2 running backs, more than likely it's going to be a run. So hey, I can call my defense accordingly, right? So I can come out of my base formation. But when you have a guy like Kyle Pitts, who's that tight end, he can split out wide and line up at the Z on the backside, or he can line up at the X. He can line up in the slot, so he can move him around. So wait, I think there is a like we talk about Brian Snicker playing chess. Arthur Smith can play chess with DeMeco Ryans and saying, hey, here's what I'm throwing at you. You might think this is a run formation, but hey, we might come out in the spread and we're going to go to work with this bad boy, because I think Kyle Pitts coupled with the continued evolution of Drake London, because so many people focus on what Kyle Pitts isn't doing. I think we need to be focusing on what Drake London is doing, because this guy has been making big catch after big catch and just showing off that, hey, this guy was worth the pick that where he was drafted by the Falcons. You understand now why Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith kind of fell in love with this dude during the whole draft process this year. So I think with Kyle Pitts coming back and Drake London continue to do what he does and being able to play around with those formations and say, hey, this may look like a run formation on paper, but hey, when you have Kyle Pitts come out there and Drake London line up next to each other and Kyle Pitts is in the slot, you're like, wait a minute, hold on now. And that's that little instance of a thought. That can be the difference between a play going for 2 yards on play action or a quick pass, or taking them deep for 30 and or maybe even taking it to the house for 6. Those just the little things that in the NFL that can be the big difference to you. And I think that Falcons should be able to take advantage of that if Kyle Pitts is able to go.
Yes, and we also saw something that we really liked from both Drake London and Kyle Pitts. You have 2 big bodies, right? You have a big body wide receiver that still has the speed, and then you have a big body tight end that is like a kind of a unicorn of a wide receiver. So one of the things Kyle Pitts said in post practice Wednesday was, hey, we already know what we're going to be up against. We know we're going to be up against a very, very physical team. So we know we have to match that physicality. And I believe when you have KP in there, it gives you one more body to match the physicality. That takes nothing away, by the way, from a Parker Hesse, if you will, in terms of being able to give Arthur Smith and Dave Ragone another blocking tight end to work with. But I think it's something to be said about somebody who, like Kyle Pitts, has taken the initiative to say, but that's a skill that I want to work on. And if you're dealing with some big bodies, then that's what you want to counter that, right? So good to have him back to practice. Hope we'll see him Sunday. And listen, this is the thing that I like to say as well. When I'm thinking about all of these things, whether, like Jarvis said, we're watching tape and we're seeing, okay, frustration. We're almost over the Grady Jarrett thing, but not quite. So when we get frustration,
still working on that.
right. Or like last night when it's like this pitching duel in the 5th inning and you're just like pacing around. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I like to at least pace around with something healthy, like a Built Bar, because we know what else we can do when we pace around, right? Get yourself something healthy. We're talking about only 160 grams of fat and yet, or 160 calories.
Right, yeah.
And yet only 15 grams of protein, or 15 grams of protein, that's pretty darn good. And so get yourself some of those chocolate puffs, 100% chocolate. I mean, that should be able to keep you very, very steady, especially because we all know that game 3 of this series on Friday is going to be super duper intense. So if you want to know more, you check out builtbars.com. We got a new discount code for you guys. Lock 15, right, Jarvis?
Locked on 15. Locked on 15.
On 15. So we've 15%. Got a new code for you. We're going to say it again. Locked on
On
15. Go to
15.
BuiltBars.com. Get yourself a healthy snack so that whether you are at the set watching Braves on Friday, or you're listening to the Hawks Friday night, or you are watching Falcons Sunday, you got something healthy to do it with. All right, guys.